All right, well, gonna record a part two. I'm just gonna express something. Hold on. I uploaded a video today that obviously I'm not entirely happy with the quality of the video because at certain times there's a lot of stuttering and whatnot. But there's a certain point that I realized was an area of unconsciousness or contention around AI slop on YouTube. And there's something that's curious about this to me is because I was there's a channel on YouTube called No Band Experience, and I'm sort of catching myself here in a kind of an unconscious reaction where my own defensive ego, my own insecurities around being a musician, I mean, that, like, what are you saying? That I have no band experience? That taking it was not even like somebody else's personal project is as if it were an attack on me. And also, the thing is, looking at it, when I saw it, because it used AI art, I didn't even realize that there was an actual person making the music, but it was just something that sort of like soaked into like the things you see when you're doing the scroll or whatever. And there's something about this kind of climate that I think there's some issue with AI slop in general on YouTube and also AI music, that it just, and the threat to real artists and real musicians, and also the environmental impact of AI, all that business. I don't really want to get into it, but maybe I do want to get into it. I have personally, it's complicated in the sense that I don't want to tell anybody. I mean, if other people want to use AI in whatever way, it's not my job to dictate what they should or should not do. But there is, do you really want to pay a subscription fee for a music platform where AI generated music, it takes up all this space and is presented on par as if it's categorically the same as a bunch of human created music, right? That could be one issue in all of this. And then that there's some issue with using AI art as visuals for if you are just making music on synthesizers or something and you need a visual to go with I often run into this problem where if I want to publish stuff, I run into an obstacle around what to use for an album cover, basically, right? And I realized that AI is too tempting to just use these AI image generators. So I actually paid somebody I knew for some artwork to use for some album covers. But there's some kind of issue around using AI at all, in that you could use AI in a very small part of what you're doing, but then use a lot of stuff that you are doing yourself, and it's still, because of just a very small amount of AI artwork that gets used, it's sort of like it puts a taint on the whole thing. And there's something about it where it's like, I think that some guy's art I initially wrote off as being just AI slop that could have been entirely generated by a bot, that could have been, even with my own paranoid delusion, as if it was targeting me personally, as if it was a psyop to make me feel bad about myself. But the thing is about this is that perhaps, like, I'm sitting here in my room and it's a rainy day, and I'm not in the city though. There's this whole thing about being in your bedroom and looking out the window. It was a little bit more cyberpunk aesthetic in this guy's videos. But there's this basic thing about, like, the idea of music as a personal headphone experience in a world of the mentality perhaps of the bedroom musician, right? The person who's in their bedroom making beats, if you will, or like lo-fi beats to chill and study to, where you've got the window and you've got like the ambient. Like, maybe if I rearrange my rearrange my camera angle. So instead of having the bookshelf in the background, I can set up the lo-fi beats to chill and study to angle, and that would make a better YouTube video. You know, maybe that's what I have to get the coffee shop beats in the background. Maybe that's the recipe for success. But what am I trying to say here? Is that there's certain, I don't really understand basically, like, well, this is a good example of it perhaps too, because like the lo-fi beats to chill and study to is like there's a visual that goes with it, but the visual is actually a person just chilling and studying and listening to lo-fi beats, right? The thing is, like, the music has no, instead of having, like, you know what's interesting? There's a musical group called Drexia, which was about a slave ship that, like, apparently these people who drowned in a slave ship started an underwater civilization. And there's actually now UFO speculation that there's a lot of UFOs that come out of the underwater, and it's like it could be that the Drexia legend was like a visionary, thing about like apprehending like the UFOs that are underwater. There could be deep sea creature merman people that are the descendants of some sort of like long forgotten race or whatever, like aliens walking among us that are not human. You know, like the it's also like the sort of like Lovecraftian, like below the surface underground kind of thing, if you get what I'm saying. Like there was a once upon a time music was a portal to envision this whole other world or whatever of possibilities. But now we have music reduced down to lo-fi beats to chill and study to, where you can't the music doesn't reference anything except for itself, and it's also a utilitarian purpose. It doesn't have its own, it doesn't envision another world except for its own. This is something that serves a utilitarian purpose to help you study, and then you can forget about anything like art related for its own sake, basically, right? Or else, for example, another issue with this is what I'm trying to say, like, there's something about the resonance of using AI images of somebody who's laying in bed with headphones on, and it's like the thing that it's like the mirroring, right, of it's like it is the Jungians that would say it would only irritate you to the sense that it mirrors something back about you. But what if the mirror isn't a neutral reflection, but it's rather a funhouse mirror that is angled in a certain way, so that when you could have a totally normal looking face, but when you look in the funhouse mirror, it distorts it, so you're like, oh no, I'm just some guy who listens to headphones, and I don't have. But then you're like, there's this kind of thing. It's like something about like the product that you're being sold, which is a media device, so in which you can consume media in a private way in your own, to have it's unable, you're unable to, we have all this ability of AI to imagine, like, crazy different things, but we've exhausted our imagination. Now we can only imagine ourselves in our own bedrooms and trying to communicate what we feel like to somebody else. But it's kind of redundant, because it's like you're just trying to point out what the medium looks like. You're just trying to mirror the medium back at itself, and now you're lost in an infinite hall of mirrors, and you're shocked, basically, right? This is what it's starting to feel like. And that, I think that we're too distracted by the politics of war, and we need to focus on the politics of, well, I don't know. It's kind of redundant at this point to tell you that I'm not paying for Spotify. And there could be many reasons not to pay for a YouTube streaming subscription, but the infinite hall of mirror, like, or like it's like this idea that you're like, there's this premise that you're like, don't blame the media because it's only a mirror showing you yourself, and it's like you're just seeing the petty futility of your own miserable life mirrored back at you, and we're actually doing you a service to provide that these vital psychological insights that you would not be able to get without this medium, right? And so this is, I don't know. Apparently this is why I'm hooked. I'm still hooked, And even as I go offline, like I think, what if I'm not even addicted to the content, but I'm addicted to this sick, violent cycle of being like, it's like, you get a Nirvana song stuck in your head, and then then they start playing you all the Nirvana, giving you the suggestions with all the ones with the weird. You start thinking that if Nirvana Lithium comes up, like, what are you saying? Are you saying I need to take lithium? What was that supposed to mean, right? Where you're like each of the Nirvana song dumb. Well, who's dumb? You're playing that one, or like like yeah, like it's like there's this, I got this sort of like there's this kind of like there's this basic problem with perhaps astrology, my interest in doing this kind of stuff, and my from a Lacanian psychoanalytic point of view, there could be that there's an overactive search for meaning in things which may not really be that meaningful, and that I'm starting to realize that basically on further critical analysis, that perhaps that the content that the algorithm feeds me is actually not as loaded with meanings. Or there could be all sorts of like this is like the process of meaning making. That there could be that it's up to you to fill in the blanks and provide whatever stimulus that's provided with you with some kind of meaning that on its own is just kind of empty, right? It's kind of just pointless. It doesn't really mean anything. But that there's some kind of like hyper vigilant, self-defended ego structure which takes everything which could like this is what is it gaslighting though? Is there actually psychological manipulative intent, or is it a neutral mirror? And if they play you songs that have suggestive titles, there's no intention behind it. It's you just reading into it and subscribing. So your own hyper defensive, you have a hyper defensive complex that sees. It's like the same thing as if you're hungry and you're walking down the street looking for a deli or a cafe to eat lunch in. That if you are hyper defensive about something, that every little thing you're going to read into these threats that aren't there. You're gonna see something and you're gonna ascribe to it a threat, something that's not there but it's like. It's in your blind spot, right? And there's some kind like this is like there's some dude could be making music and he's just too lazy to come up. Like I actually relate to this because sometimes you don't know what you want to use for an image or something, or you'd have to put all this effort into making visuals or whatever, right? The problem is then there's a who knows what this person is trying to express. But it's like, for some reason, the algorithm chooses this over perhaps. What I'm suspicious of is like, what if there's like a whole alternate reality of content recommendations out there that you're just not seeing? Of like that if everybody saw this other stuff, we would live in like a utopian society, and like everybody would just be like, hallelujah! It's like a miracle. I once was blind, but now I see. But instead, we're shown precisely what's going to piss us off and irritate us, right? But it's like it could be that is my own complex, and I've been lost. Like it's like it builds this whole structure. This is why I think I can kind of see how this works, because I think there's a certain quality of paranoid schizophrenic who believes they're being like gang stalked, or that there's all this stuff going on that is specifically targeting them. Like there has to be like a team of people who are coordinating attack to undermine their sense of self and their sense of security. And it could actually be that they're just self-defensive, or there's something about it where like they read into that meaning when it's not actually there. But then what if the whole point though is that what if that is psychologizing it, and what if that that intent, that malintent is actually there, and we live in an elaborate system of gaslighting people. Or like, this is what I'm trying to say about, there's a certain kind of doppelganger thing going on relating to the Naomi Klein doppelganger and certain political things, like the recent things that happened, in the news, the war with Venezuela, right? That there's this sort of thing that they're just going to start bombing boats, Venezuelan ships, on the pretense that these are drug boats, and that the war on drugs is a tantamount to a real. There's something sort of thing where it's kind of like, what if there's like two versions of reality? One version of reality where these are actually legitimately hostile drug boats or something like that, and one where they completely aren't, and that you're in this kind of world where you just it's like there's the world of the false image, or like the mirage or something like that, right? Where it's like, but like nobody is really buying it either. Um, but there's a certain kind of ignorance where it's like you can like you in this sort of kind of it's like the senile old person, or my own, like if you're paranoid schizophrenic, and you can say that you're like, you can figure that there's this whole thing that's there that's not, but then that could give you reason to start some shit, and start some real shit that actually is real. And then people, whether or not your reason to start that shit in the first place was valid, doesn't matter now, because too much shit has happened since then for the validity of that original thing to even matter, right? You just got to get the wheels in motion, and then there's so much the history, and then in hindsight just looks like a bunch of fucking hallucinated bullshit of people being hyper vigilant and defensive for no reason. And like that's the psychology. That's just the zeitgeist that we're in, basically, right? And that we're like, I don't know. This is I'm doing something different here, because usually I don't record a part two addendum like this, or I'm just kind of going with it. So bear with me. Thanks for watching.